Second. Can you guys?
Oh, sorry, I just popped it on record just in case anybody.
Oh, that's fine. I was going to say we can record it. Can you guys see the screen okay just now?
Yep.
Cool. Right. 1 second while I load this up. Apologies here. Then
we did have this loaded, but it seems to have gone, doesn't it?
Yeah. As you can see, I'm a technological expert here. But yeah, so like I was saying, I'm conscious that I don't want to just chat at you for the whole time. So if you've got any questions, fire them in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask throughout. We're going to have a bit of a discussion here as well. So basically, how this talk is going to work today, good, is I'm going to briefly fire through the kind of principles of the training, how it's all going to work. And then we're going to go into a little bit of like a informal discussion. So Kirsty's going to talk about, tips and tricks about how to get the best at your training, to avoid injuries. And we'll have a bit of a chat amongst each other and share some ideas. So who are we? So Kirsty here, she's got correct me if I'm wrong here, BSc in sports science with injuries, masters in physiotherapy.
Yep.
Chartered physio, 8 years private practice, all-round genius. I'm basically the local village idiot. You'll see me running around Portree all the time. I've done an HND in coaching developing sport. I've done the Lydiard level 1 and 2, which is kind of the principles I base the training off. I've done my jog leader, and I'm just working towards my coach and run fitness just now. So the aims of the 9-week program is basically, I want you guys to think of this as a base and a springboard to further training. So I'm not all about those kind of short 8 weeks till perfection, blah, 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 blah.
It's just not possible.
It's not possible. Yeah. It's all about kind of consistency and, putting the work in and giving yourself something that's sustainable and you can kick on and do. So you'll see in the sample plan, there's 5 days, but feel free, 4 days is better, kind of 5 days is optional. And I'll kind of teach you how to tailor it to yourself. And also, I'm going to encourage you guys to kind of support each other and train together. So it's based on kind of time and perceived effort. So, it's very doable that you guys could meet up and do the session. So obviously, because we're so dispersed and spread out, it can be hard to say we're going to train on this night. But the idea is that maybe to start off with, we can, if there's a group and say, oh, does anyone want to do this session this day? You can meet up and do it. And then maybe we can look at doing some sessions together as we go on. So try and springboard the running club a bit. So
it's good for motivation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always good to kind of train as a group. No, technology is always working. Oh, fuck. Sorry about my language there. Here we go. Why aren't we going? And how will we see the training? So you're going to see the training. I'm going to email it out to you. You'll get the PDF sheets. There's going to be a WhatsApp group, so you can ask me questions at any time. Feel free. I'll try and get my best to get back to you. I do have a reputation of being quite slow at replying, but I'm going to nip that in the bud. And
I beg to differ.
Yeah, and we'll also have a Strava group as well. So if you want to join that, we can see how we're getting on with our training and just encourage each other to get along. So Lydiard principles. Arthur Lydiard is basically, he was a coach from New Zealand, and he's kind of one of the most influential coaches on modern training. He's talking about it's like a pyramid model, periodization, and trying to build yourself up to the peak. So it's all about building a big kind of base. So that's the first principle is your aerobic base. So basically, most of the races, anything over 2 minutes, you're going to be working aerobically. So that's where you're going to get the most gains. And that's a lot of that's from gentle, easy running. So, I don't want you to be breaking yourself down every session. We're just wanting to kind of increase our time on feet. It's all about the volume and kind of increasing our capacity so we can work for longer, and that will help us kind of maintain the higher speeds as we go on. Response regulated adaptation. So I'm a big believer in kind of going off and training based on how you feel. So we might change some workouts depending on how we're improving. It's not just being a slave to the plan. These things can change. Sometimes it's looking at runs that are harder and dialing it back, or if you're feeling good, pushing a little bit harder. It's kind of learning to judge how you feel.
That's a big one for injury prevention, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying there, you can have your fancy watches and things, and I've got one, but the best tool is yourself and learning how to read your own body.
You always get those early warning signs, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really kind of trying to teach yourself how to listen to that, or and not trying to push through it. Feeling based training. So yet again, like we were saying, this is running off how you feel and perceived effort, and not going off kind of your paces, your heart rate, and your guidelines. They can help, but really, I can't stress this enough, is learning how to kind of identify how you feel. Sequential development. So you're going to see here that it's going to be a pyramid, and it's all going to be tied up, and we're going to have this big aerobic base, strengthen our legs, then get to race specific stuff, and then we're going to try and peak at the right time, which ties into timing. So the idea is that through this training, you're going to gradually build up, and we're wanting you to have your best performance there on race day, not during the training, but it's really trying to manage it so that we hit our best performance on the day that it counts. So quick one, why we're using time and perceived effort. So like I said, it helps you judge your time. So if you're training for say an hour as opposed to distance, it's kind of easier to work out what effort you can hold for that time. You're also less likely to push that hard if you're working for a time. If you're doing for a distance, sometimes we get carried away and we want to hit a certain distance at a certain time because it looks good in Strava and we get loads of kudos. But if we're doing it for time, you're less likely to try to push yourself a little bit harder. And I can't stress enough, a lot of this is gentle running. So when you see the plan, don't freak out, because it's going to feel fairly easy for you. Time is a natural metric across to make training even across modalities. Basically, that sounds good, sort of Google, but what that means is that we're all going to be different levels and abilities. So when I put down distances, it might take one person to run 10 miles could take an hour, and another person it's going to take 2 hours. And your body can't tell how far it's run. It's all about the time and how we're working. So that way it's going to be relative to you, and we're all going to work at a level that's appropriate to us. And when I was talking about internal and external factors, can anyone, if you want to chip in, think of any kind of factors in the sky that might affect how quickly you run? Anyone?
The wind.
The wind, exactly. The weather. I mean, how often do you go out and it's blowing a hoolie? So we're not looking to like kind of dig ourselves into these holes there. The terrain, it's really hilly, so it's going to be harder for us, but it's also good because it's good strength training. So there's so much that can influence it. So if you just go off how you feel, your body can't tell how fast it's going. It doesn't know how you feel. It's all going to be relative on the day, and you're going to get that same benefit. So then you'll see here on the workouts, there's a scale of perceived effort. So if you want it, this will be recorded, or I'll send this presentation out to you guys later. But this is basically telling you what they mean. So it goes from 1 to 10. So 1 and 2, that's where your kind of recovery runs are. So it's easy. You can chat the whole time. Free-flowing sentences. It's a happy place to be. So 1 and 2, pretty similar. 3, that's where you might be coming into your easy runs. 2 to 3. You can still chat on that, so that's a good test with your friends. But when you're talking, you'll be talking like this and having breath between your sentences. So that's the kind of difference, just looking for that little breath, but it's still really comfortable. 5, that might be when we're starting to work a little bit more. So I always just think about how it's when I'm chatting. So you're deep breathing, starting to get a bit heavier, and maybe when we're working, we're talking like this. So you can still kind of talk, but you're taking a lot more breaths. We'll just batter through this bit here.
If you're running on your own, you just have to talk to
yourself.
yourself.
Exactly. You might actually catch me running my own sometimes. I do talk to myself, or as a recovery run, sometimes I even sing. So you
I'm
might
getting nervous that there's 10 levels here. We're at the not being able to talk already.
I don't think they're never going to see 9 and 10 on the plan, really.
Oh,
so
okay.
Is now maximum effort. You can't do it for a long time. That's at the end of the race. That's pretty much how we want to feel. We've done our best. We've worked to our absolute maximum, and we're ready. We're hating the world, but we're also really proud that we finished. So first phase of your plan here is aerobic conditioning. So this is a condensed version of a Lydiard pyramid. Normally, in an ideal world, we train for 18 weeks. This is 9. But we're still going to get the same kind of benefits, and it's going to be a good sort of foundation and a springboard to later training. So the crux of this is going to be, we're going to build our aerobic base and our leg strength. So the session types you're going to have here, easy runs and recovery runs, you're going to see that all the way throughout. So when I was talking about that pyramid, that's never going to change. They're always going to be there, and we're just going to add on top of it. Your out and back run is going to be like a little test for you for the first 3 weeks. So you're going to find a route that you're going to keep the same every week, and you're going to go out for 30 minutes, nice easy pace. So you start off really relaxed and easy, and you're gradually increasing the pace, and then you're going to turn around at 30 minutes and try and get back to the start slightly faster. But the idea is you still keep an easy effort, and we're going to see over the weeks if you get slightly faster or cover more distance while maintaining the same effort. So you can either do that mentally and think, am I keeping the same effort? Or if you want, you can use your heart rate monitor. That's a good way to sort of monitor it. But it's still kind of nice low stress, building this foundation for you. The long run, that's the most important thing. So I know I've got the distance times here. I think I start off at 90 minutes and it'll go up to 2 hours. But if you feel like that's too much, knock off some time, take it. Don't be scared by it. You're running at an easy pace. So it's not like you're trying to cover as much distance as possible. You're wanting to go at a pace where you feel comfortable, you're relaxed, and you can chat. And you be surprised. But if you want to knock off like 15 minutes or so, that's okay. As long as we're doing some work and doing consistency, it's kind of tailoring it to yourself. Obviously, I realize it was a big group and there might be some kind of disparities in our ability levels. And if you want some advice on that, you can feel free to give me a message. But I would say give it a go, because you'd be surprised what you can do. And then the hill sessions, I'll explain that more at the time. But essentially, we're going to find a route where we have a nice long hill that we can work at for a kind of like prolonged period of time. So you want a little circuit. So I like say Stormy Hill up where Harry's is in Portree, if you know that one. So even just running up that hill at a slow pace, that's going to build strength in your legs. So we're not trying to get anaerobic. We're going to go at a pace that feels comfortable for us, and we're slowing this down, and that's going to increase the resistance. If you're feeling a bit stronger, we can do this thing called bounding, and I'll send you a video to show what that's like. But that's basically, we're going to work for maybe 100 meters, and you're doing sort of, you're basically like kind of leaping up the hill, and you're strengthening your legs there. So when we get to the faster stuff, that's going to kind of condition us to cope with the added stress. And running up the hill is also really good because it promotes good form when you're going up there, and that's going to teach you to keep a nice posture when you're running. So that's stuff we're going to think about. Then we're going to recover at the top of the hill. When you're going downhill, we're going to focus on leaning forward and land with your foot. So instead of breaking yourself with your heel, you can go that little bit faster, and you're going to be more stable. So it's good practice for that. Then have a nice flat recovery again, and then going up the hill. So we'll be working for like 20 minutes, and it's all, yet again, most of this is all aerobic, so you're wanting to keep it a nice easy pace. So I'll explain that more at the time. Feel free to ask me questions whenever you need it if you're not sure about any of the sessions. Then we're going to go into phase 2. So this is the integration. So this is going to be 3 weeks, and that's where we're going to get more race specific workouts. So we're going to maintain the work we've done before. So we're going to have the easy and the recovery runs. We're going to have a PCR run, which I'll explain in a second, so we can practice the pacing, and that's going to be like a dress rehearsal for your race. So the idea is that when you come to racing, nothing's new. Has anyone here ever, try on race day, you brought new shoes or you've tried gels and it's gone disastrously wrong? Anyone got any experience like that? We show hands even. I know I have. I've given myself all sorts of horrible rashes and felt sick, and so I've learned, don't do anything new on race day. So the idea is that when you get there, we feel comfortable, we've done it all before, and we're just kind of showing what we've done in training.
It's not the time to experiment.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely not the time to experiment. Sometimes it can work out great, but other times when it doesn't go great, it goes really wrong.
And the body's super sensitive because they got that nervous system heightened.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to try and feel relaxed as possible. So the 2 new sessions you're going to see here, it's the PCR run. So it's very similar to your out and back run. This is the only run I'm going to give you distance. So it's good to find a course that mimics your race course. So we can think of anything in the sky that would mimic the race course. Hint, hint, hint. Do it on that. But if not, you find something similar. we're going to go out for 3.5 miles. So we're going to start off at an easy pace and gradually work our way up to race pace. And then we're going to try and return faster. But this is going to teach you to run at your race pace, but also try and get that pacing. So you run at negative split. So we're kind of working to ease yourself into the race and finish strong. There's been loads of times where you go out too hard and you blow up, and it's a horrible place to be. So like I said, in training is where we practice and get everything, and then race day, you're just executing. And then we'll have some interval sessions as well. So we're not going to treat working anaerobically. It's going to be perceived effort. So we're going to be working at our 10K pace, but we're not trying to dig ourselves into a hole. So in the intervals, if you feel like your form's going or your time's drastically dipping off, just nip it in the bud. You've done your work, it's great, and go into the cool down. So it's about, like I said, making it response regulated. It's kind of taking a little bit of ownership of your own training. The best training is the training you can recover from. So, you don't want to dig yourself in a well. I can't stress that enough. I've done that. I got injured. It happens. It's part and parcel. And we want your running to give you energy, and you should feel good and great after it, not run down and tired and moody. It should be something that's enjoyable. And then finally, we'll go into phase 3. So that's basically, we're recovering, we're tapering. So it's only a week. Then we're going to beat Lewis, and we're going to have a big celebration. So the plan here, so I'll email this out to you, but you'll have it week by week. This a quick explanation there. So you can see there's little colors under there. That's your session. The key at the bottom is kind of a description of how we do the sessions. And like I said, you're going to be in the WhatsApp group. So if you've got any questions, just email me or WhatsApp me. Or if I don't reply, go into the shop, grab me by the scruff of the neck and pretty weak and ask me the questions. And I'll answer. And then finally, before we open up the chat, we'll go some quick tips. So listen to your body. Can't stress that enough. Last month, I was really tired and digging the well, and I was too scared to ease it back. And I ended up injuring myself the week before the race. And now I'm having to take some time off. And that's the hardest thing about your training when you get going is, being honest and dialing it off. I know some people worry that push yourself hard enough, but I think inherently you will want to kind of keep going. And, there's nothing wrong with dialing it back a bit and recovering, because the idea is all about longevity and consistency. It's not just like one quick program, not one workout makes you, but one workout can break you. And yeah, it's all about consistency and just enjoying it. Do you have anything you want to add?
Especially like as a woman, our cycles are different as well. You can feel different at certain times, and just kind of like questioning, how do I feel today? And if it doesn't fit the training regime, don't be scared to adjust it or speak to Mark potentially, because it's slightly flexible, isn't it?
Yeah,
as long as you've got your baseline.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got that. I'll explain it to you when we open up the discussion, but there is room to adjust it to yourself. And like I said, I've got 5 days in there, but I know everyone's going to run 5 days. I ideally like you to aim for 4 days, and I think it is doable, but we have to change it. But if you're not sure what runs to cut in and what ones to add, just ask me. I'd rather you keep in the easier runs and keep building that base than just doing that one hard session a week. You're going to get so much benefits from building that aerobic base. I can't stress it enough. You have to do very little at the start. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck from there.
Yeah.
90% of the running of a 10K is aerobic, so it makes sense to kind of focus on that kind of that aspect of it.
And it'll also take the nervousness out if you've done the homework. If you've got that baseline fitness, you're way more prepared, aren't you, on the day?
Exactly. It's all about being prepared on race day, essentially, and it's going to make you feel more confident and more relaxed. Err on the side of caution. So if you're really not sure about running on a day and doing that hard session, there's no shame in taking the easier session, down it off, go for a nice easy aerobic run. It's better to live to fight another day than to ruin yourself in training and ruin your race day. So there's nothing wrong with being cautious. Plan your week ahead. This is a big one. Obviously, be prepared to be flexible, but if you can take the time at the start of your week to say, right, I'm going to do my runs this day, and maybe I'll meet up with this person this day, it kind of takes out that effort, and you won't go, let's kick it down the road today. You've kind of set that in your mind, I'm going to do this goal on this day. So what I've done is put it on the days, but just take that as a sample and fit it into your own week. Try and keep the runs in order if you can. But if you can't, it's not the end of the world. I would say the recovery run, you want to have that after your harder session. So if you are going to do the harder run, do that first. It doesn't really make sense to do the recovery run before the harder session and then not have that. But yeah, how we play about with the runs if you need to, and it fits in better with your week. If possible, train with a friend. It's always good and it makes it more enjoyable. So that's what I was saying, meeting up, and it's part of the fun of running. If you can, it gets quite lonely going around the streets of Portree. So, and it really as well, it'll stress the easy running because you're going out and you're having a chat, and it'll take the mind off it and have someone to keep you accountable. If you know that you're meeting up with this person and they're waiting for you in the road, you're less likely to go, sod it, I'm just going to sit in and stay nice and warm. So, yeah. And then at this point as well, I haven't written it down, but really just enjoy it. That's the main thing. I was trying to, when I say running a feeling, sometimes you can get so regimented and you're looking at your watch and you're pacing and it's all about hitting goals. But really you're going to get your best performances and your most out of your running when you're happy, you're enjoying it and you're relaxed. Like when you go into the racing as well, just see how you feel and we'll push each other along. And, you sometimes you'll see me at the end of races and I'm celebrating. And that's because I love what I'm doing and I enjoy it. And, I want everyone to have that kind of enjoyment. If you meet your goals and stuff, it's a great feeling. And just being out there and moving your body and staying active, whatever you do. So that's the main thing, is just make sure you're enjoying what you're doing. And then prioritizing your recovery. So that kind of transitions into Kirsty, and we'll have our more informal chat. But easy training, recover, we're resting our body, breaking it down and recovering, and that's when we're getting better. So if you have good recovery, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. And I think you've kind of, throughout all of that, you've spoke about everything that you need in order to prevent injury. And obviously there is the whole warm up, cool down element, but actually what is more important about preventing injury is putting in that steady, prepared effort so that you have those fundamental strength and flexibility groundings, and know that they're there, because there's no point in cramming in a wee warm up and thinking that that's enough, or cooling off and thinking that a stretch after is going to give you the flexibility. It's more about consistency again there, just like it is with the aerobic, keeping it consistent. So when you are stretching, it's not about doing it before you go out. I mean, there's a lot of research on stretching, and they've kind of come to the conclusion that it's more about frequency, daily frequency, rather than pre or post run. So don't get yourself too in a muddle about having to go through these stretches and things like that before you go out for a run. I don't think that's healthy. I think it's just good to get a routine where you're working on your flexibility. Obviously this training regime is about building the sport specific strength, and I think that's healthy. And I think for runners it's good to kind of focus on the sport itself. And they do talk about strength and conditioning, and that bringing in other sports as well, so that you're a bit more globally strong. And I think that is important. But if to keep it sport specific, I think the best thing you can do is for instance, even warm-up wise, mimic the sport itself. So in a controlled manner, go for a jog, and then build up your speed and build up your range, and warm up the muscles. And warming up the muscles is huge.
I was just going to chime in there with for your warm-up, it's different as well. So for my my normal training runs, I don't do too much to warm up. I do a little bit of foam rolling, and then all I'm really doing is I'm starting off really easy, and I'm naturally increasing the pace as I go on. So, I'll wake up and I'm like the Tin Man, and I'll walk around a little bit. And then when I actually start running, it's really slow, and I'm just loosening up my body, and I'll just naturally ease myself up into the pace. And you'll be amazed. Sometimes you'll feel horrible at the start, and you'll just slowly ease yourself and eke yourself up into that pace. So it's not about, I should be doing 7-minute miles or whatever. 8-minute miles and hitting that pace consistently throughout. Just start off nice and easy and relax and work your way up there, because you will get there. And that's the thing about just learning how you feel and listening to your body. I'm going to keep saying that. You'll hear me say it 1,000 times, but it's such a good skill to have.
Yeah.
And then, sorry to finish off there, on race day, that's where it might be slightly different. So when you've got your intervals or your PCR run, if you have yourself a little routine, that's where you want to be able to be a bit warmer, because on race day, you want to be able to hit that higher intensity right from the word go. So that's where you might go for a little jog beforehand, do some drills, warm up. It'd be different, but you don't have to do that for every run. Normally, you can just get it there, start out easy, and work your way up.
Yeah, and I think that don't get too tied up in running drills that you see on social media and things like that. I think like it's important to just think, okay, what is it? What's my goal? My goal is that I'm going to increase my running, and don't try and complicate it by starting new drills, because sometimes drills that I've seen on Instagram are quite repetitive, like bouncing and jumping, and you're doing a lot of that with the sport anyway. And if you just take yourself off for a nice jog, that's the best way of warming up, and then just build up until the body's really warm, and wearing extra layers until your temperature is up as well, to make everything kind of soften and become more flexible. Because when we're cold, we're all tense and tight, and obviously things like making sure that you're not tense in and around the shoulders is quite a nice one to take that tension out. So like, do you do big arm swings and things like that before you get going, or?
Before a race, I might start to kind of deliberately incorporate that. But when I'm running regularly, you might see me swing my arms or loosen my shoulders up a little bit. And it's just seeing how they feel in the day. But a good tip is, in fact, if you all want to try this, if you ever wonder what that relaxed shoulder position is like, the best way to get yourself into that is see if everyone just shrugs their shoulders up as high as they possibly can. And then once you've got them up to your ears, just drop them. That's going to set yourself naturally into that position where you've got relaxed shoulders. So it's like a really good place to be running. It opens up your breathing. So if you ever feel like you're tight at a run, sometimes I'll even do it in a race. I'll just shrug my shoulders up and drop them quickly, and that'll reset me into that kind of relaxed position.
And the same goes with like your scapula, your shoulder blades at the back. So if you can squeeze your shoulder blades back as far as you can, as if you're trying to squeeze like something like a tennis ball in between them, and then really, really tighten up, tense, and then drop and release. And it sort of resets you from that angle, as well as shrug, up and down and back. Because obviously, a lot of repetitive movements and postures are forward based. So it's good to squeeze as far as you can, and then release, and you kind of reset that way as well. What else do you do? Mark, you have a massage gun, don't you, that you use a lot for like self massage, and there's obviously rollers as well. You do quite a lot of fascial rolling, don't you? Yeah, so I'm quite big on kind of muscle pliability. So you don't have to do this. You can definitely go. I'm a big believer in the foam roller. I really kind of feel that kind of loosens me up and gets my kind of blood flowing through the muscles. So I spend a lot of time on that before my run. I've got a lacrosse ball, so that's quite a good one. Put that in the freezer if you want a little treat for yourself, and then get it out and roll it in your feet and your shins. It's quite nice. It also kind of helps kind of reduce any inflammation. And the Theragun, I just thought it looked really cool online, but when I got it, I swear it makes me feel looser, and maybe it's psychological. You don't need it. You'll probably see me before a race and I look ridiculous. Don't underestimate the psychological placebo effect. Yeah, but it's just like I said, we're creating those routines. I don't know if anyone's got anything they'd like to share with the warm-ups or things they like to do. There's no one right answer, and I think I meant to touch on that earlier. Different things work for different people. Different trainings work for different people. You've got to kind of suss out what works for you. This is a good base, but it's all about carrying it to yourself. I don't know if anyone's got anything want to share about their warm-ups or tips for other people, or any questions about something they're not unsure of. I mean, feel free to ask or share just now if you want. If anyone's got anything. No,
it's difficult to sorry, go on. Connie.
Sorry, I just recently started glute activation before run, and I find that's kind of been helping me.
Yeah, great. Can you just explain how you activate your glutes? How do you do it?
So I started using, a band
Mhm.
on my legs and just raising one leg up for 20 and then switch the other leg up for 20. And then I might include some glute bridges, like glute raise bridges. I think that's what you call them. And it only takes like 5 minutes, but I feel like I'm a bit warmer, a bit more flexible.
Yeah. And then that is a really good, is that you, Eve? I've recognized your voice.
Yeah, sorry, I've got 2 kids in the background as well.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and it's really good to activate the glutes, because sometimes when you're running, and I see this in clinic a lot of people can run without a lot of glute activation.
Yeah.
So to fire them up like that before, it just gets the blood flow going and they're more reactive. And they've kind of proven that in research as well.
It teaches you how it feels to kind of activate your glutes. You can kind of, it's hard to explain, but when people tell you to use your glutes when you're running, how does that feel? But if you can incorporate that in your warm-up sometimes, you'll have a good idea of it'll teach your body to engage in while you're running. And that's actually quite a good point, because when I met Kirsty, I was having a hamstring issue. Don't you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that was that I think I was overcompensating and I wasn't firing my glutes when I ran,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really putting a lot of stress on my hamstring. So it's kind of teaching yourself how to kind of move in those more efficient patterns.
The biggest golden nugget when it comes to injury prevention for runners that I've found is the glute. Don't underestimate the glute medius muscle. So that's the one that stabilizes the hips, and I put a post ages ago on about it, but that's your hip stabilizer, and that's what stops the hips from kind of swaying out and like abducting out to the side, and just keeps you control that symmetry when you're on the one leg stance phase of the run. So you have to be quite strong and stable in order to control the hip on that one leg stance, because it is a one-legged sport. You go from one leg to the next leg. So it's the control at the hip in that phase. So, keeping really strong in the hips and the glute medius specifically. So doing things like bridges that Eve's talking about with the bands will help stabilize that, and then pushing yourself further by adding in that single leg bridge, single leg work is really, really important. And then also, if you are, doing your single leg training specifically, whether it's lunges or whatever, doing it in front of a mirror so you can see whether the hips are coming out and swaying, and your alignment, watching your alignment. Yeah.
A good thing to kind of touch on. This is the time to ask these questions while we've got Kirsty here, but people say running is bad for injuries and things like that, and I really don't believe that. I think people just train too hard and they may be moving a bit poorly. But if you've got any kind of questions about niggles or kind of preventing injuries, this would be a good time to we can discuss it. But
that's a good point though, Mark, about how you, it's more like if you're fatigued that the injury comes in, rather than because it's when muscles get tired that the form drops, and it's usually form dropping that gives you a repetitive strain injury. Like your biomechanics aren't the best when you're tired. So that's again comes into, that's when you need that professional support, or that sort of template for your training to keep you in check. Because you might be feeling great, like, this is the best run ever, because your energy levels are high, but yet your form is not great. It's
starting to deteriorate. And you will kind of feel that. I mean, it'll happen naturally at the end of longer races, but for most of your train runs, even your long runs, like I said, you're working for that easier pace. And if you feel like you're starting to dip off too much, don't be afraid to knock it in the head. And I thought maybe you could segue into maybe identifying little things that how you can tell when you're tired and stressing your body, and what's the difference between that feeling and the feeling of I'm overdoing it and I'm overtraining. Does anyone here know or want to suggest any kind of things we can look out for that might be a sign of overtraining? I'll start us off. So an easy one could be a change in your mood. So I think Rich is in here. If Rich sees me and I come into work and I'm really cranky and I don't speak, which obviously never happens, that could be a telltale sign. So your mood, things like your sleep. If you your sleep starts to break up a bit, that could be a sign that you're under recovered. Does anyone here got a fitness watch? Anyone here wear a fitness watch day to day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see your resting heart rate, if you can see that go up in the morning, creeping up, that's a sign that you're working harder and you're having to recover. So if you see that elevated over a long period of time, that could be a sign that you're maybe overdoing it a little bit.
That runs nicely into, like, I hate to talk about this because this is all about, you know, great subjects, but viruses. So like if you've had the virus, if you've had COVID, your organs are still recovering for quite some time after, and there's a lot of tests being done about inflammatory markers within the visceral system, so organs like your heart, and they're doing, like, high-end athletes are getting quite a lot of tests to pick up inflammatory markers post-viral. So if they're, you know, lateral flow testing, and then as soon as, you know, regularly, and then as soon as you have any signs of a virus or you feel under the weather, that's when to stop, because that's when the inflammation in the organs kicks in, not just your body, you know. So that's really important, because you know, to recover from heart inflammation takes longer and you need more rest and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, in a Garmin, sorry, Amy here, excuse my croaky voice, a Garmin group that I'm in, people were talking about somebody had just like recently had COVID, and they were saying that actually when they looked back on their Garmin stats, they could really see in their heart rate when they contracted it, like looking back, they were like, my watch was telling me my heart rate was consistently high. I was struggling, and I, you know, the guy was like, I hadn't taken it on board, and looking back, and then so many people were like, oh, actually, I've just looked at mine, and the exact same.
Yeah.
People were really saying your heart rate is really telling you. For in the days leading up to it, it was really evident. It actually, you know, just it was all there. And he was like, I never once thought to take that on board and look at it. And he'd said that he was really going to take that as something that he made part of his daily routine, is to actually look and say, what's my body telling me without me, you know, I've bought this £400 watch, I may as well use it and actually see what it's telling me, which is actually you're struggling, you're sitting doing nothing, and your heart is, you know, elevated. What do you need to do? What can you do? Do you need water? Do you need fresh air? Do you need to just take it easy?
Yeah.
I find that really interesting, actually.
Yeah,
It's a total good metric, and this is a good point as well, is when you're ill or feeling viral, don't go out there and do a hard run. That's gonna make it worse, and it's gonna really put a lot of stress in your body. So either take a rest day, or if you're gonna go run really easy. It's if you're, like I said, on the side of caution, it's really just letting your body recover, and that's where you're gonna get all the benefits. So don't be afraid to. I'm gonna keep stressing this because this is where I struggle. Don't be afraid to take an easy day or a rest day. And to kind of let your body kind of get over whatever illness it's going to be, because, you know, these kind of things happen and crop up in training, and it's just something you've got to adjust with and deal with and move it forward. Or if you miss a week, for example, just go back and repeat the previous week. Don't jump ahead, just go back a week and repeat it and build yourself up. You're still going to get the same benefits from it. So
Mark, can I just ask about the 5 days?
Yeah.
So I used to do 5 days years ago, and then got old, got injured, and now I just do every other day. But from what you're saying, you think, is it more beneficial to go and do the 5 days in the manner that you would want them done, as in, you know,
yeah. So,
gently? But that's quite a jump, I guess, for me, in terms of, because some days that would only be 3 days a week that I'm training, running at the moment. I
yes.
do other stuff on the other days, but yeah, would it be better jumping to 5 days, or?
No. So if you're not been running 5 days or 4 days, start off with 4 days or even 3 days.
Okay.
You could maybe use your recovery run as an easy run, or the out and back as an easy run.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. So you could just get rid of the easy run. So I would say, ideally, if you can, try and start off with the 4 days.
Yeah.
And it might seem intimidating doing the 4 days if you're not used to it, but you're running at an easy pace. It's comfortable. So you might be going a lot slower than you normally do. So
Yeah.
you should really be able to speak comfortably the whole time. So that's a good check. If you're on your own, just say a couple sentences and make sure you're not even breathing between them if it's a recovery run. And it shouldn't feel stressful. You should feel energetic at the end of that hour. You don't want to be at the end of the hour going, or 45 minutes, whatever, going, I've done my run, it should be like, people shouldn't be able to tell that you've gone for a run. You might be a little bit wet because you live in Skye, but other than that, it should feel like a brisk walk or something pretty easy. It's really, and that makes it more enjoyable as well. I think a lot of people, a big mistake is it's going too hard consistently. It's just a nice, easy, relaxing run. It's gentle running, and you're going to get that same benefit. So it's hard to imagine getting faster from running slower, but having that endurance, you'll find that you'll get faster naturally without putting any more effort in. And when you're doing very little, that's when we're going to get the most gains from less work. The faster you get, the harder it is to make those gains. But at the start, just from doing the easy running, that's where you're going to get your big gains.
And maybe adjusting the other stuff you're doing as well for the time being for the plan. You know, doing less of the, is it HIIT stuff you're doing, Sam?
No, weights stuff. So just to try and get full body strength, really.
I think it is important to do weight training, but I think you could strip that back, because that's a lot of fatigue for the body and strain, and that's where, you know, your muscles are getting, and your tendons are getting torn, basically. And quite considerably so cut back quite a bit on that, and that will ease off the amount that your body needs rest-wise to recover.
I'm aware of my age, though, that I'm at a point where weight training is quite important because
you
risk
can put it all in and you can still make those improvements. I think if you're going to do the weight training, do them on the days that are harder. So
okay, God.
Right. Keep your recovery days nice and easy, nice and relaxed.
Okay.
And then the days where you're working, they're a little bit harder and putting the stress in your body, and having that balance.
Right.
I even think if you're doing the weight training in general, this is my sort of methodology, you're always wanting to be at a point where you can recover and keep it consistent, as opposed to breaking yourself down all the time. It's all about, I said this about 1,000 times, consistency and longevity.
On the weight training as well, a shortcut that you can take is eccentric weight training. So if you're eccentrically weight training, you're going to be doing the movements, whatever movement you're doing. So say if it's bicep curls, you're going to be lengthening. So it's just do the lengthening resistance rather the eccentric lowering, or you know, the eccentric element of that, if that makes sense. So that you're working the muscle as you lengthen it. It works out harder. So things, when I used to work with the bodybuilders, they said we prioritize our rest, so we only strengthen eccentrically. That way we can recover faster and we can do more and we can gain more strength in the process. They weren't smashing out the reps concentrically, because that fatigues you, tires your muscles, tires your body in general, and takes more to recover from.
So slower on the down then.
Yes, slow resistance as you're lengthening.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I know that's very specific to me.
Has anyone got any questions about their own training or how they can fit in their weeks? Or
I'm glad you asked that, Sam, because that's exactly what I was going to ask. Is how you fit in other work, because I think that over the past year I've kind of learned that running, I need to do more to support my running. I think when I just run, I have quite poor kind of glutes, and I need to really support that. And the more I do to support it, the more I benefit my running, but equally trying to fit both in and thinking, what do you prioritize? Because
it's a nightmare, isn't it, Amy? It's like you have to have work and kids and all of that stuff, but really if you did everything that you were supposed to do, you could, would be a full-time job, wouldn't it? Like you would do yoga and swimming and
just go out, because then you're like, do I just go? I really want to just go and do a 9-mile run. I would quite like to go and do that, but equally, if I don't do that, but then if I do this, I'm too tired to go and do a 9-mile run. And where's the balance? What do I do? What do I prioritize? So you need to tell me.
So that's where I think for me, the strength training is supplemental. You can get a lot of benefit from doing it once or twice a week and fitting it in those days. But a lot of the strength training you can build in your run. So when we do that hill session, for example, that is strength training. And one of the benefits to being on Skye is it's really hilly. So from going up those hills just really slowly, that's going to inherently strengthen your legs and your muscles and condition yourself. And when I was talking about building that base and that easy running, what we're doing is prepping our body for the harder work. So it's pretty safe to train at an easy, relaxed pace. It's very little stress in your body, and we're just trying to get ourselves ready for harder stuff later. So we don't have any sort of intervals here where we're working anaerobically. So when you're going flat out and you're busting the gut and you're heaving, that's where you're most likely to pick up your injuries in those hard sessions. And we don't really need to do that just now to get the benefits. Like I said, this is a springboard. And that just reminds me, you're going to see strides in the workout, so that's optional. So I thought I'd explain that briefly. So strides are a good fun way that you can do a little bit of speed work, but it's very little tax in your body. So it's just like short little, not quite sprints, it's 80 to 90% for roughly 10 seconds. And you can do that after your run. You can do it during your run. I quite like doing it after and just doing some little sprints. You're just basically teaching yourself to keep that good form and move well and get your legs turning over. And then you're just doing like a nice recovery. So it shouldn't feel hard to do them. So the strides, you can do 6 to 8, just no more than 8. You could do 4 or 5. That's how you're feeling on the day. And this is little 8% bursts and then like a 30, 40 second recovery. So that could be a really, really slow jog. You can walk back to the start.
Oh, sorry, guys.
And then that's just going to get us into the habit of moving better. Anyone else got any questions about kind of fitting in their training or how they can sort of tailor it to themselves or anything they're worried about? Any concerns for the training?
Can I ask, just, this is probably going to sound really niffy, but I don't just run. I'm part of a hill walking club,
Yeah.
and I've got a ski holiday
Yeah.
like next month. So things like that, I don't want to give up just for the sake of running. I love running, but I love
Yeah.
doing other things as well.
100%.
Oh yeah, you don't need to give it up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it should be, something that's easy to fit into your life. But if other things come in the way, that's okay. You just knock it back a week and go from there. That's what I was saying about consistency. It's not about having even just this one. Say you hit those 9 weeks, you did everything perfect. That's all well and good, but it's better to just consistently keep chipping away at it. And if you miss a week, don't be like, oh, what's the point? Just revisit it later and just keep taking away, and you'll still have the benefits. Not everyone's trained for a race. So this is kind of geared toward the training. But the idea is that it should be, something that's sustainable that you could do throughout the time.
Yeah.
And you're still going to get those benefits. You don't have to be working towards a race, or it's just kind of encouraging you to move and be, this is giving a little bit of structure. But if you want to do your hill training on one of those days, that's a great bit of cardio, or you want to go skiing, whatever, fit those things in your life. And it's about enjoying it. I would hate for you, don't come away thinking I'm expecting you to run 5 days a week and be absolutely miserable and see it through and get a great time. Fit it into your life.
I guess that would be is what you're saying, like that would be the optimal, the best case scenario. But if you can, it's not a prescription type thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's what's optimal. Ideally, I would say 4 would be really good because it's about volume. But don't be afraid, or don't be too downbeat if you miss a week or even 2 weeks. Just pick yourself back up and keep chipping away at it. Because it's always just good to be doing something. At the end of the day, you want to be exercising and moving and staying healthy throughout your life. And that's going to give you enjoyment. It's going to make you feel good mentally and physically. And that's really what it's all about. So yeah, this is a training plan for a race, but I would just be quite happy if you guys were seeing you out running more and enjoying yourselves.
That's great. I was just going to ask Mark, how we should have discussed this offline, but how are we going to make the WhatsApp group work in terms of linking people up, really? So
what we'll do is when we email out the training program, so if you send your emails to Sky Events, we've got as part of the entry for the race, there's a tick box bits for us to be able to go back with the training plan, so they should get that. So when I send out the training plan, or we send the training plan, I'll put my number in the email and some quick explanations, and then just text me if you wanted to add to the group or to the Strava thing. Okay. This is a place where you can bounce off ideas. If you want to do a session with someone, and maybe you want to meet some new people, you can put in, hey, I'm doing my easy run today. Is anyone fancy? Or I'm going to do it on Tuesday. And you can meet up, you can discuss routes, or just any concerns, or if you need that motivation. That's the whole idea, is that we'll get better, but better together and supporting each other. And that's that whole kind of community thing. It's nice. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without the people around me. So really, it's this kind of leaning on those around you, and that'll help you succeed.
Have you got sessions that would work with people who are at different levels, or how do we kind of say, because obviously you're not going to want to go for a run with me, Mark, because I would possibly like hinder your performance. How do we kind of say where we're at with?
Yeah, so I mean, you'll have a rough idea who's around you, but for say like the recovery runs, if someone's a little bit faster than you or slower, slowing yourself down in that run isn't going to hinder your performance.
Okay.
It's easy runs. It's just getting that time on feet and that base.
Right.
So don't be afraid to jump in with someone and go out for a run with them. Or even if you're just going out together and you're finishing at the same time, if you're going for time, that's a beauty of good time. If you start at the same time and you go out for that time and go back at the same time, you know, you're kind of training together. You might not necessarily be together on that session, but it's still having someone there with you and they're on the route. So that's where that kind of caters for the ability gap. But obviously it's quite hard because we're going to be all kind of ranges.
Yeah.
That was the kind of thinking behind it really, for doing the time as opposed to the distance.
Okay, so that's it. We can go out together then, Mark. That's lovely. I'll see you next week. Yeah, that's fine. I like the idea actually that you can do the recovery runs and that is just time on your feet really, and just make that into a bit of a social. That's good. Okay. So has anybody got anything else that they wanted to ask? Might just let Mark and Kirsty have their Sunday.
No, it's great. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And it would be lovely if, Kirsty, if you did have, I know you mentioned you shared a post before about the glute side of things. Perhaps you could tag us so that we could share that onto the page.
Yeah, no problem.
That'd be good.
Yeah, because you could get into depth. I mean, I could bore everyone talking about like everything. There's so much involved in running, isn't there? And
yeah.
This symmetry is quite an important thing as well in running, because
I think if there's this one sort of key thing that we think, all right, we better keep an eye on that. I know that there's lots of things, but that would, help cut through the confusion, I think. Yeah.
No problem.
That'd be good. Yeah.
If you've got a WhatsApp group, I could maybe put something on there.
Yeah. Okay.
The main thing, just to conclude, is really just, I've said it 1,000 times, just take it easy for the most part and enjoy it. And it really should be something that gives you energy at the end of your day, or you feel more energized and feel better after it. We're really not looking to dig ourselves into a hole here. It's just gentle running. So yeah, I mean, just to say like thanks for Sam for setting us up today, and thanks for everyone who came to listen to me. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And thanks for Kirsty for
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Thank you.
If there's any questions injury wise, don't mind, even though at the moment I don't have time and I've got a lot on, so I can't commit myself to doing the program myself. But I would like to be on the group chat, and then if anyone had any niggles, just casually pop them up there and we can all talk about it, because it might be of interest to other people. Or but equally, if you want to contact me separate to it, I'm more than happy to chat away with anyone over anything.
Oh, that's really kind. Thanks so much, Kirsty. That's really helpful. Right. Okay. Thanks for everybody for coming today. And thank you so much to Kirsty and Mark for giving up their time to make this happen for us. It's really exciting. So yeah, I hope to see some of you out for training runs and chat in the WhatsApp group. So yeah, okay.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm now like, I feel like I'm just going to put my trousers on and go out for a run. I feel like really motivated right now. I'm like, I really quite like to run right now. This is
go, Amy, go.
Until you look at the weather.
I quite like this. It hides the sweat. It makes it like,
yeah.
Quite run. Sarah, we've discussed this. We're not fair weather runners. I know you're the same.
She's on an exercise bike. Oh, sorry.
Come on the other side.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for that. That's made me want to do more on Sunday than I would have otherwise.
Right, good stuff. Okay, so we'll see you all on the WhatsApp group. All right, say goodbye now. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, bye.
Right.